What's going on, everyone? This is Lawrence Yo from More to That, and welcome. Welcome. It's been a while since I put up a new video, so I'm going to just kickstart it all off again with today. And I really want to talk today about my storytelling course and what it was like to run that thing, because I just finished it last week on Monday, and I've just been kind of just thinking through how it went, but not really writing anything down or anything of that sort. I don't plan on publishing a post about it or anything like that. So I was just thinking, hey, let's just talk about it, right? Because as I said before, to talk is to think in a sense. And this is what's going to help me really construct a lot of the things and the reflections that I've had about this course over the last few weeks. So I wanted to just riff on it. I have a few bullet points here, really, like really high level bullet points, but as always, I'm just going to talk about it here and kind of just go off the top of the dome, really, and see where it takes me, right? So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about logistics. So I announced this thing in April of this year. So let people know that, hey, there's a wait list. You could join. I'm doing this thing. And then I opened enrollment in September. And then after that, I basically said, hey, course starts on October 25th, goes until November 15th. And that was it. So I had about like a month and a half after I opened enrollment before the course started. So let me start with the first thing when it comes to what exactly a cohort based course is. And I'm sure many of you are familiar, but I'll just do a super high level overview. So a cohort based course is basically a time constrained course. So in my case, it was 3 weeks where you're gathering a group of people together, and all these people are learning together, and you're doing many of the sessions live. So everyone's in a shared collective space. And within that space, people are not just learning about the things that they're going to pick up and utilize, but they are actually also putting into practice, whether it's in the form of assignments or workshops that you're doing during the course. So basically, it has the optimal blend of theory and practice that is necessary to really make a particular skill set concrete. And that essentially is what a cohort based course is, and you do it all together. So basically, like I said, I opened up enrollment, or I opened up the wait list back in April. And let's first walk through the wait list, okay? And something that I learned about the wait list here. So there's a lot of emphasis on having a wait list, really, and that is kind of an extension of the argument of email and the importance of email in terms of operating one of those things, which I believe is very crucial. The wait list is basically just people saying that, hey, I'm interested in this, and perhaps there is an intention for me to take this course, right? Now, that latter part should not be confused with the former, right? Just because someone has an intention to take this course doesn't mean that they're going to actually take it, or if they're interested that they will actually pay for the experience necessarily, right? So I think one of the things I was really focused on was building a wait list. So by the time I launched this thing, I had, a couple hundred people that were interested in taking this. And the thing though is that the waitlist doesn't necessarily translate into people that are actually going to buy the course or take the course, right? And just because you have a waitlist doesn't mean that, okay, like let's say 50% of them are going to take it. No, that's not how it works. So when you are actually marketing this course, or you're actually saying, hey, it's open for enrollment, don't necessarily expect a flood of people, especially if you haven't done anything before that to really gauge interest and so forth in it. So just kind of keep that in mind as you put together this wait list and are thinking through how you want to use this wait list as a means to get people in the door. So the thing about this first round is I didn't do very much marketing. The only thing I really did was I did a workshop on story framing, or what I call problem framing, which is a pretty crucial component of the course. And that in itself was actually really helpful to bringing people, not just to get them feel comfortable, but also having them see a window into how I teach and also the way I present my material. And the other thing I did was also send maybe like 4 or 5 emails from the day enrollment opened until whenever I filled the cohort. So I actually was able to fill the cohort. It sold out twice, which was really cool. So initially there were just 36 spots open, and then I filled that, opened up a few more spots. I didn't want to go over 40, so ended at the final number of 39, which was great. That was the ideal place for me to be. I had two tiers. I had an essential tier, I had a premium tier, and yeah, once I think the cohort filled up like in late September or something like that. So I had a good 4 weeks or something before the course started for me to actually know that, okay, everyone's here. I know where people are coming in from. And I was just able to focus on finalizing the curriculum. All right, water break real quick. All right, so for those of you that don't know too, I do these videos in one take. I just blow by it because I think of this as kind of like a podcast, really. So if I fuck up or if I say something that I'm not supposed to, I mean, I guess I can go edit it or something, but why? I mean, I want this to feel like I'm just talking directly to you or with you in a sense. So this is why. That water break, you're going to see it in its full glory. Okay, so after I filled it, then it came down to really, like I said, the material, right? And when it comes to the material, one thing that I really internalized is presentation matters. Presentation certainly matters. So I have a particular aesthetic with more to that, right? So I have illustrations, I have a particular way of framing my stories. And I didn't want this to be like, hey, I'm just making a bunch of slides in Google Slides with a bunch of text and then having this be a kind of lecture like vibe, right? So what I actually did was I drew almost every single slide for this course. So it's just illustration after illustration after illustration. And I believe, the average slide count for one of my modules is 100. So you get an idea of like how much work went into this thing in terms of how I wanted to present the material. And sure, I could have just did some text or some text-based slides and made things generic or bought a template and used it. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that because I knew that there was a certain aesthetic I had. And also I wanted to pour my creative all into this thing for sure, right? So I wanted to make sure that everything that I put together for this thing was super well thought out. And not even was it well thought out, but it was well executed, right? And really, presentation does matter in terms of what you're showing to your students as you're going through this. So one of the big pieces of feedback I got, and we'll talk about feedback in a little bit, was like, damn, yo, I could tell you put a shit ton of work into this. That's one thing that I continuously heard just from like the slides and the fact that I drew everything. And also you have to think about when it comes to presentation, when it comes to these cohort-based courses, now this is just me talking here. I don't think it's generally just about what you're going to communicate and have a student go from point A to point B. It's how you're taking that student along on that journey or on that experience, right? So like there's a difference between Disneyland and your neighborhood park because there was so much intention that was put into Disneyland and everything was well architected, constructed. They wanted it to make it feel like you're walking through a storyline when you're there, right? So not to say that this is like as if you'll be at Disneyland, but I really wanted to encapsulate the vibe of a storytelling course into the experience of a story, right? So I packaged the whole thing as if we were in a story together. So I created this world called a story campground where we get to go to the campfire and share things out. And there is a lodge that we all gather in. There's workshops. You could kind of imagine a rustic wooden workshop that you might find in a campground or something like that. So all these things I really thought through because I wanted the students to feel not just like this is an actual experience, but also within this world, they could feel a sense of community in a way, right? Because community doesn't just develop because you have a group of people together, right? There's certain things that will foster that community, and whether it's certain rules that you have set in place or certain guidelines or certain nudges and so forth. The route I decided to go with community and building that was through storytelling, right? And to have people feel that, hey, if we're all kind of characters in this story, then we all have the capacity to interact and communicate with one another as a part of this narrative. So that's really what I did with this. I built a world for us to all kind of hang out in. And even the kind of quote unquote forum, which I just use this platform called Circle to do, which probably many of you are familiar with. But I basically just created that whole thing as if we're a campground. So there's spaces that are like for campfires and for story buddies. You know, you're kind of thinking of the camping buddy you might have that you're held accountable with, things of that nature. So all these things, really, experience design goes a long way in terms of fostering relationships and also giving people the sense of, now I'm going to use this word probably multiple times throughout this video, is warmth. Like this feeling that I am in this communal area together with these people, and there is this warmth that is exuding from it. So that really is what I am optimizing for. And I know that some courses are going for the really big cohorts, and it's through the energy of sheer numbers that you are able to create these serendipitous connections because of the diverse range of experiences of people there. But I'm still thinking about this more, but I really like the fact that this cohort was on the smaller end, and how there is this, but it wasn't so small to the point where you're constrained in the amount of personalities and experiences you're bringing in here. So it had the best of both. It was big enough where a lot of people from disparate industries could get together, but small enough so that it retains the vibe of, hey, I know this person, I see that person every time we're together. And as a result, I could feel this connection. And also another thing that I did really was I wanted to foster that kind of warmth and connection by also trying to create many one-on-one connections between people. So even before this course kicked off, because I knew there were 4 or 5 weeks where the cohort was finalized and I'm just working on the curriculum. So I figured, hey, why not just pair some people up together who want to be paired up for a one-on-one chat? So that way they could know one another even before the course starts, right? So because when the course starts, you know, you kind of think back on going to school, right? And there's this sense of, you know, like if you think back to elementary school or junior high school or whatever, it's like there's this comfort in knowing a friend that's going to that school with you, right? It's like, oh, I know Jacob, yeah, or I know Cheryl, yeah, we're gonna go to the school that we both don't know, but it's cool that I know at least you, so I know somebody going into the experience, so it's less daunting, right? So I wanted to emulate that, and once people enrolled, they were provided a survey where they could provide their interests, they could say who their influences are and what they're looking to get out of this course and all that stuff. So I read through everyone's surveys, and then I offered what I called a campfire chat, really, to anyone who was interested in having a one-on-one conversation. So that's the other thing too, is I wanted to introduce a sense of agency. It's only if you want to do it. I'm not going to force you to have a one-on-one conversation if that's not your jive, if that's not your thing. But if you are interested in that, then hey, I will pair you up with someone personally, because I'm going to read through all these surveys and find who might you be a good match with. So that's one thing that I did to help foster that. And people that did it, a lot of them said they really enjoyed that. And actually it was the first seed that was planted into a growing relationship once they started the course. So these are all little things, right? That it starts with kind of what you value as an instructor, as a teacher, and how you feel that translates into the student experience. So I knew that I wanted to cultivate that sense of warmth, that sense of familiarity, that sense of kind of, hey, we're going to go through a fairly rigorous learning experience, but I'm going to be able to do it with people that I feel comfortable with, familiar with. And in order to get to that threshold, I'm kind of giving a little bit of guidance, and not just that, but opportunities for people to take on their own to have them cultivate that emotion. So these are all things that went into my mind as I was thinking through this. So yeah, I mean, presentation is really huge, and getting people to talk, getting people to have the ability to reach out to one another if they want to, and to carry those relationships onward is really crucial. And really, when it comes to actually teaching the course itself, right? And there's already a bunch of things that I know I'm going to probably tweak for the next cohort, which will start early next year. So just throwing that out there. And what I definitely found here with the teaching experience was just how important it is to give people the chance to talk to one another even while you're teaching as well. So it doesn't just feel like a lecture. It doesn't just feel like they're listening to Lawrence talk. And there is the paradox of that, right? The paradox is that people are all here because they're interested in what I have to say. But if that's all I'm doing is providing what I have to say, there is something that feels empty about the experience. There's something that feels wasted because everyone is here together. Well, for this cohort is because they know of more to that. They know what I write about. And what I write about is things that kind of force people to reflect and to think about their lives in a much more meaningful way. I mean, really, the anchoring question to what I write about is, what does it mean to live a good and fulfilling life? So there is that connective tissue, really, that everyone is gathered by. So if you know that this other person here is here in this course because they're interested in what I may have to say, then they're probably thinking, well, we may think alike, or we may have some things that we're really curious about that we can share with one another, and that we're going to be able to even learn from one another if we have the opportunity to talk to one another, right? So that, I think, is an opportunity you want to ensure you really take up, right? Especially as an instructor, and you want to create the space to do that even during the instruction period. So I have this thing here where, to build on that world where it's not called breakout rooms. I call them a group hike, where everyone gets together in little groups and they go hiking together. And because when you're hiking, that's when you have the energy of companionship going on, and you're able to just talk and just riff on whatever. So I embedded these group hikes within the sessions to ensure that people have the chance to talk to one another, that they get to know one another. And once they return back to the main session, or what I call the main lodge, they've at least had some of that energy expelled and exchanged with other students that can make them feel invigorated when they return back, and I kind of carry on with the lecture again. So, or with the session again. I hesitate to call it a lecture because it really isn't that. It's very, I think even as I instruct, I want to make it interactive as possible. So anyway, all these things really go into the creation of a total experience, right? And really, that element of giving people the opportunity to get to know one another because they have a feeling they will get along with the next person, that is something that I think is really crucial to this. So you want to cultivate an environment where you can do that. And a lot of it also comes from who you are as an instructor as well. And it's interesting because you really set the tone. I mean, that sounds really cliche, but you set the tone for what people feel like is cool to do, what feels natural, where they could, like in what environments can they feel like they're the most themselves. And I think that's what I wanted to really help with is to bring out whatever people feel is authentic, and without spewing out too many cliches or truisms there. Because if you could set that example for a vibe that you want, then that's the vibe that you're going to get. So one thing that I did here, and I'm thinking through how I may want to do this for the next cohort, is that, after our sessions, this was kind of impromptu, but we just started to have these hangout chats where I would just stay on well after the session is over and just talk to people, answer their questions and their comments or whatever they had. And it's surprising, but a lot of the people that enjoyed the course the most said they really enjoyed those hangout chats a lot. Of course, the sessions were valuable because that taught them the things that they wanted to learn and pick up about storytelling. But the hangout chats were where we got to just talk about, just all kinds of life stuff and my thoughts on various philosophical perspectives and also others as well, and just riff. Like, it was chance for people to be vulnerable and even get emotional sometimes, sharing themselves, as I did at one point. And like, it was just a really beautiful space that was cultivated. And I didn't say, hey, we're only doing this for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I mean, at certain points, yeah, I did have to say, okay, we were well past now. We went on a long time. But for the most part, it was very free flowing, and I just kind of let it go. And I think that spirit right there is something that students not just appreciated, but also they were able to get a understanding of what this vibe is like, right? Because if at the end of the session I was just like, okay, my time is up, my time is super valuable, and this is all we have set here I gotta bounce, peace, and just fling the mic and leave Zoom, then you're gonna get more of that curt kind of atmosphere, I think, and the inaccessibility of Lawrence and stuff like that. But through the hangout chats, the big thing is I didn't want there to be any really significant gap between like an instructor and a student, right? Like, this is not an institution, this is not a university, anything like that. I'm just a dude that really loves storytelling, and I do it in I guess a unique enough way where people are interested in it and want to learn more about it. And that all I'm doing is just sharing my knowledge. So that kind of knowledge sharing you don't have to create any types of divides, really. And I think that's the thing that I wanted to cultivate through this experience. And based on the feedback I've gotten, I think many people appreciated that. And what's also great is if people don't really like that kind of stuff, then they could drop off well before the hangout chat. That's the other thing too, is that I think some people really just are there just to learn. And they're there because they signed up for a storytelling course, and peace, they're out after that. And for those people, they get what they want too, right? Those 90 minutes of instruction, they got that, and that's good. But for those that either want to get to know me better or get to know their fellow classmates together, the cohort more, and do it in a space where it doesn't feel super rushed or anything like that, like you're just kind of hanging out, then these hangout chats are perfect. So I'm going to think through more of maybe how I might want to structure this a little bit so it's not as tangential and not as random as it kind of was last time. But seeing that it was something that people enjoyed, I'm taking that into consideration for even anything coming up next here. Water break 2. Okay. And, oh man, I feel like I could go on and on and on about this. But this is already, I don't know, like, how long is this? 25 minutes already. But yeah, let's see. Man, I mean, I also just really, really had a fun time. I had such a fun time. And I think that was one of the things that I didn't really anticipate was, like what exactly it means to have fun in this kind of atmosphere where you're teaching and you have a lot of students who invested their time and their money and their attention into this. And, I think when I was first doing this, I just really thought about, I want to make a great experience for everybody, like I want to make sure that everything is right and that I do as much as I can and make these wonderful illustrations so people know, hey, a lot of work went into this. And to an extent, that is important. But a lot of the things that you can't really anticipate in terms of what you will enjoy are the moments when you're just there, either teaching or you're there with your students, and you're just talking about just whatever may either come across the mind, or just hearing a student give you feedback or their thoughts on a given topic, and the energy of that. And I just really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that so much. And it's just beautiful how, like when when a course is created, you do so because you see it as an opportunity to teach, to also just connect with others, and of course to also make this a sustainable business for your creative endeavor. There's all these things that go into it. But I think the greatest thing that you need to have really to make this thing sustainable truly is not a revenue number, but it's really about how much fun you're having connecting with others, and how much you're learning about yourself through this experience as well. And I think what's great too is that everyone in this cohort is from all different kinds of places, like there's entrepreneurs, there's corporate people, there are, artists, there's people of various age groups. So it really is an entire gamut of personalities and experiences all coming together. So it's hard for you to go into it thinking that I am going to teach everyone here something and that's all I'm going to do. Just the sheer breadth of people here, it makes it inevitable that you're going to learn something from them in some sense, right? So it's also a lot about being open to that. And you're going to learn not just about running a course, which is also really important, but also what it's like to interact with people that you may have otherwise never had the opportunity to meet, especially as a creator, right? Because and especially as a writer. I could keep saying especially and go down the rabbit hole here, but as a writer, a lot of writing is a solitary endeavor. Now, I'm talking about the actual process of writing, right? Now, there's a lot of things about that are not solitary, like you having a conversation with somebody and those ideas happen to spark your writing or give you an idea. But I'm talking about the act of writing. You spend a lot of time just with you and your keyboard or a pen and a pad, just writing. And sometimes it's hard to experience the nuances of connection that may exist between you and a reader, right? But when you're in an environment where you see all the faces that have read your stuff together, and you just see the range of people that embody this particular, whatever archetype you thought you had in your mind, it really kind of shatters, and it shows you that, hey, wow, okay, this is not a lonesome endeavor here, right? There are lots of people here that you have the capacity to connect with on a deeper level. Because what's beautiful is you kind of eliminate the surface already with the people that are here. And because the things that I write about, for example, and things that probably you touch on or create on, have already cut out a lot of the surface bullshit, right? Like you're down in the weeds already of what you're truly interested in. And you know that these folks are also just as interested in the things that you are as well. And that's such a beautiful place to start any type of relationship or interaction with somebody. So really, it's about taking that into account as much as you can throughout the experience. And I think if there's anything to take away from that, it's really to appreciate that moment that you're having as you're teaching this, because the practical stuff you'll learn as you go, right? I mean, there's practical things, even like, for example, make sure one thing that was important to me was getting a Zoom person that would manage all the Zoom stuff so I could focus purely on instruction, right? But that's something that you could pick up as you go. But I do recommend that a lot. And thanks to my friend Kehi for making that recommendation, because it was really helpful. I think the things that are much more intangible, though, are the things like, hey, when you're there and you see all these faces and you're actually communicating, really take that in as much as you can, right? Because in the way that time constraints help with the learning experience for a student, I think it also maximizes your awareness for how precious this moment is, right? Because it comes to an end on a particular day. And knowing that it comes to an end on a particular day, there's something about the finiteness of the experience that really tunes you into the whole thing as well. So I think that's another beautiful byproduct of these cohort-based courses that isn't talked about enough, but the finiteness for the instructor in terms of what he or she feels within him or herself as they're going through this experience, and to really appreciate the current moment that you have with this group of people as you're going through it, and as you are really in the place of privilege to share your ideas, and that people care about your ideas enough to the point where they are here to give their most precious resource, which is their attention. So just keep that in mind as you're running this. And I know it sounds like I've run many of these, but like I said, I've only done one. And I know that there will be some changes. I don't know if there'll be huge changes, but some tweaks here and there that I'm going to make for the next cohort. But of course, I will keep you posted when that next cohort launches. I hope this video was helpful if you're thinking about running one of these or even taking a course like this. And there is a wait list that I have. It's I'll put a link in the description so you could go check that out. And I know that the waitlist is just a place for you to, say, hey, I'm interested, but you will see when the cohort opens up in early next year, you'll be able to enroll, I guess, the moment that period opens. So hope to see you on that side as well. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And thank you for being here. Bye.